Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to In the Zone. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles. And today, folks, we have a super special guest for you. We're super pumped to welcome Ryan Bamford, the Director of Athletics from the University of Massachusetts. Ryan, welcome to In the Zone.
Thank you for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate you taking your time. And so we're going to hit it, and we're going to try and be mindful of the fact that you're extremely busy. I want to start off with the Ithaca Bombers. I've done my research here, and quite an accomplished career at Ithaca. What I want to know is, were you on the team when we lost to them?
No, I don't think so. What year would that have been? Do you
It
know?
was right around the first time I got here. Did you play for Jim Mullen?
I played for Coach Mullins. I
Yeah.
played for Tom Baker for a year, and then Jim Mullins for 3.
Okay. Jim Mullen's a legend. Really, really
Jim,
great basketball coach. So,
wonderful coach and even better human being. One of my very close friends and mentors.
yeah, what a great guy and quality basketball coach. We competed against Ithaca at one time, and we wound up losing a close game against him, but I was just really, really impressed with the way he handled his team, the whole operation. Why don't we start there and talk about your experience as a player? Because I'm got people on the ground here that are telling me you're still coming up in some of these leagues, in some of these runs all over Massachusetts, still playing. So this is one of those things, as we talk about on the show, as a hooper. Let's start with Ithaca, but then, I mean, you're still playing, so let's go through that a little bit.
Well, you know what? I had a chance to have a really good career at Ithaca. My the opportunities coming out of high school were largely around lower Division Ones, Division Twos, Division Threes, and I grew up in a Division Three environment. My dad was the director of athletics at Plymouth State University, and so I had a great appreciation for Division Three. And I went out on a visit, a weekend visit, and I spent 48 hours or 36 hours maybe at Colgate, and then a day and a half at Ithaca on the same visit. And that ended up coming down to those two schools at the end of the day. And I just knew I could play right away at Ithaca. They had the sport management program. I wanted to be in college athletics administration. It was a great school. I really liked the coaching staff. I liked the guys in the program, and I made a great decision. It was an awesome place to be for my formidable college years. And yeah, I took a little bit of a break after college and really focused on my career, and still played a lot of pickup basketball and played in some men's leagues when I was at Yale University down in Connecticut. I played in some leagues, and I just got back after some time away, and my knees and ankles getting taking some hits. I got back into it and have started to play a little bit more in the last year, and I'm in terrible shape right now. So it's not pretty. It takes me a little while to get the jumper back, but I enjoy the competitive aspects of it still. And I just wish I still had the stamina to do some of the things I was doing 25 years ago.
So I busted out my UMASS colors today. I don't know if you can see that.
Nice.
I wanted to talk to the people a little bit, though. When Ryan's being a little bit humble when he says break out the jumper. We went into it a little bit. There's several records still in your name at Ithaca, for 3-point percentages and 3-point shooting. Talk about what that means to have made a decision to go to a place that might have been a divergent path at the time, but really, really paid value when you got a chance to, almost have a Hall of Fame career there.
Well, I wanted to play. I thought it was important. I really wanted to take advantage of my eligibility, and I knew at Ithaca I could play right away. I played a lot as a freshman and really started my sophomore through senior years, and we had some really good teams at Ithaca. Unfortunately, back when I was playing, this dates me. The NCAA tournament, my first year, I think was 24 teams, and it moved to 32 teams, and it didn't expand until after I left. So we had some teams that won 20 plus games, took Colgate to overtime one year, and beat Binghamton Division one year, and didn't go to the NCAA tournament, strangely enough.
Right.
And we didn't have a path there because we didn't have a conference tournament at the time. It was whoever the regular season champ was. So we ended up finishing second 3 years in a row and didn't get the automatic bid. And so, but I was very fortunate. I had a great coaching staff, really good teammates that are still some of my best friends to today. And at the end of the day, I tell our young people all the time at UMass, you're gonna forget the wins and the losses. Some of them will stay with you, the big ones and the losses that sting, but you're never gonna forget the people. You're never gonna forget that experience, and those relationships that you build will be lifelong, and that's what it's all about. And I can speak to that because here I am a couple decades later, and it's always been about the people and about those relationships that have carried so much weight for me, and have really enriched my life immeasurably.
Yeah, that's very astute, very astute. Let's jump forward now. In 2015, I would assume that that's like a bit of a dream of a lifetime. You get the position at the University of Massachusetts, and it's a great school with a tremendous amount of tradition. What did it feel like in 2015 when you first walked through the door?
Well, being a New England kid, growing up in New Hampshire, doing my graduate work after Ithaca, I went to Springfield College, so right down the road from UMass, and being in Western Mass, and being near the birthplace of basketball, which was so near and dear to me, and then really watching in my childhood and in high school. I was in high school 92 to 96. There wasn't a better basketball program in the country in that 4-year period than what Coach Cal had going at UMass. And so the
100%.
basketball brand, but the brand of the institution, I really had a desire to be aligned in my career at places that were high academic institutions. So being at Yale for 9 years, being at Georgia Tech for 4 years, I wanted to be at a place where the young people wanted to be really good in the classroom, wanted to obviously compete on the playing surface, and have a good social experience. And UMass just fit all of those things. And there was a lot of work when I stepped in the door. There was a lot of things we had to try to tackle, and we had to try to really build back a brand that in some ways I think had to reestablish itself in the Division One, both regionally and nationally, and but a really strong academic brand. Our chancellor at the time, who's now since retired, did an unbelievable job of getting UMass into the top 25 of public research universities. So, when you're out there selling the experience and the academic experience to young people to go along with what you're doing in athletics, it was a really easy sell, just like it had been at Yale and at Georgia Tech. And so that was really important to us. And in the last decade, that's what we've tried to really pursue, is that academic excellence. And I'm happy to say that we've had some of the best years, the last 3 or 4 that we've ever had in the life cycle of our athletics program. We've also done amazingly well competitively. And then, obviously in the engagement and the philanthropy around athletics, and the way that we try to build pride both in our own campus community, the greater Amherst community, Western Mass, but then throughout the Commonwealth, where so many of our graduates are. That's important to us, and that'll be something that we keep our eye on as a priority going forward. And the work never ends, as you know, Rich, until you win every game. And even then, you're trying to figure out how to continue that.
You'll be worried about what's next.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's the awesome part about college athletics, is that you're never satisfied. And that's certainly, we have a mantra in our department: we expect to win, and we're never satisfied with where we are, and we're always trying to get better and be better and build a culture where people can hold each other accountable. But we work hard, have fun doing it, and ultimately we think that leads to success.
Educate, win, inspire, invest. That's unbelievable. I wanted to, just because in my research with people, I always learn things about them, because I grew up in the Bronx, and how I grab people and how I do things with people is always very visceral, through feel and just kind of get a hold of it. And so one of the things that I know is we have a mutual, very close friend in Tom McElroy.
Oh yeah.
And Tom McElroy is, in this business, probably not a whole lot of people closer to me. He's a Bonaventure guy. I'm a Bonaventure guy.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
I mean, we're thicker than blood, But I did, when I noticed, and I went through the whole thing, and I said, This is a guy who was a commissioner, assistant commissioner of the Big East, had been an athletic director at Rhode Island on his own. And so that type of hire said to me that this is a confident young person in Ryan Bamford. He wants to surround himself with really good, strong people. And that leadership style of yours really impressed me. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought up Tom. He was a big driver in the things that we did early in my tenure here, and I was so happy to have him part of it. One of the things that I learned at an early age in this profession is, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're probably in the wrong room. In that you want to surround yourself with people that can both fill in your gaps where you may not be as strong, but also really help move the needle for the department in any decision-making process or strategy that you're building. And Tom, for me, the external relationships that Tom had, the history of experience that he had from an external standpoint in positioning our brand and thinking about how we were going to market ourselves and how we were going to really try to gain following and activate all those external constituents in the right way in that positioning. Tom was unbelievably helpful and demonstrated a skill set that I didn't have, and that I had to really build in my own portfolio. And so we were very fortunate to have Tom with us, and I still call Tom and bounce things off of him. Um, I've told other folks, I said, hey, they've called me and said, hey, I'm looking to try to do this or that. And I said, I got a guy for you. Call Tom McElroy, because he'll be able to help you with that search or that strategy or get you connected with the right people to make a good decision. And so happy to call Tom a dear friend. And he was a tremendous colleague for me here at UMass, and really got us on the right footing with how to reposition our brand and our department in a way that was going to allow us to have success, in sustainable success.
He's a great man, and one of the reasons that I was excited to have you on, because he spoke so highly of you and your relationship, and I think that says a lot about you as a leader. Let's jump right into the orchestration of the move to the MAC. Talk about, that's massive. That's a huge undertaking. Talk about some of the motivations. Talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Talk to us whatever you can about what led all the movement to the MAC.
Well, there are a number of things at play, and look, when you're moving a lion's share of your athletic programs over to a new conference, there's a lot that goes into that decision, and I had studied it for a long time. And I don't have to tell you, I mean, since I was at Georgia Tech, the conference realignment pieces in Division One have been really monumental in reshaping Division One athletics as a whole. And now you throw geography out the window, and all of a sudden people are making decisions relative to revenue and to the ability to try to grow themselves and the opportunities to invest in their programs. And so what I watched at Georgia Tech when we introduced Pitt and Syracuse and Notre Dame and Louisville into the league, when I got there, those schools weren't there. 2 years later, they jumped into our league, and in Maryland left to go to the Big
Right.
Ten. It was a totally different league and totally different environment. And and then you study some of the other movements that we've had. At the end of the day, here are two very important things for the University of Massachusetts. One, and I say this with all the respect in the world for the Atlantic 10, because we are a charter member. The Atlantic 10 is going to be 50 years old next year. We've been in the league for 49 years, and we have an unbelievable amount of respect for our peers, for that league. It's done so many good things for us. It's been a great marriage. As a basketball-centric league, it wasn't ever able to meet some of the needs we had with a growing FBS football program. And that just naturally, we needed to be organized around what you're watching in college athletics is every driving decision in Division I college sports is built around football. Like it or not, that's the environment we live in. And we had an independent football program that was really struggling to gain a foothold not just regionally or nationally, but with our own fan base because of the lack of success that we've had. And that's been largely due to the fact that we've been an independent. We've had to play a 12-game schedule that changed every year. We've had to play 2 or 3 Power Four institutions in that schedule. And you can't build your football program as an independent if your name's not Notre Dame. It's just really hard to do that and sustain it. And so, alongside that, was the opportunity in this new era, and you could see it coming 2 or 3 years ago when the transfer portal, came open, and kids were immediately eligible, and then the confluence of the NIL opportunities and revenue sharing and what was going to happen in this house settlement. So 18 months ago, it wasn't hard to see that you were going to need to be positioned in a way that was going to allow you to not only have success, but to invest in that success. And our move to the Mid-American Conference does a couple things for us. It drives additional revenue to our department that we're going to be able to utilize to grow our football and other programs in the department. We're going to be well resourced against our peers in the MAC. That's going to be really a really good strategy to building our program over time in a way that's going to allow us to continue to drive that experience and that engagement and that success in Division One. And the second thing that it does for us is it positions us with similarly situated institutions. It situates us with 12 public research universities. And unfortunately, in the Atlantic 10, it was a couple publics, but a lot of small private institutions that, like St. Bonaventure, that were very different than us. Didn't have FBS football, didn't have Division One hockey. They're thinking institutionally very different than the University of Massachusetts is thinking. We got in meetings and we weren't aligned on the things that were important to not only our athletic programs, but our institutions. That's okay. That's healthy. But it made sense for us to be with Miami of Ohio, University of Buffalo, the flagship campus of the SUNY system in New York, a contiguous state to us. Ohio University, Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Western Michigan, all those schools that they had very similar priorities around enrollment, around research. So not just in athletics, but also our chancellor could be aligned with people that had similar priorities institutionally. And that was an outgrowth of that relationship that we saw back when we were in the MAC in football 10 years ago. And I thought that the opportunities were really, really good in this new landscape and too good for us to not take advantage of, and to really build some new rivalries and to build, to really help our football program get that foothold and grow as it really still an FBS program that's only just over a decade old. And I want the next 10, 20 years for UMass football to be really prosperous. And there was no doubt we had to get in a league to do that.
That's a great explanation, and I think people have to understand also that a lot of the conferences, and I think some of this is going to bear out in the future, some of the conferences that have been football avoidant, in the Big East and A10, we're going to see how that plays out over time. And I know they're claiming to have a little bit of a bigger advantage on the revenue side now because they don't have to share it with football, but I think as long as there's 2 lanes there and you have that big football programs, they'll always find enough money to fund it. Let's talk about, we just got the House decision, and we've gotten, kind of little bits and pieces of the whole thing. But if you could just throw it, because I was real excited to have an athletic director's take on this, a director of athletics take on this, the portal, the NIL, what it's done, where do you see it going in the future, and is there a way to do it better than it's being done right now?
Well, the genie's out of the bottle, right? And it's hard to really figure out how to put all those things back together because we've gone so far in student athlete rights, and for good reason. And I think largely it's been very positive. I was just at the National Athletic Directors meetings in down in Orlando this week, and we had a chance to sit with Charlie Baker for a couple hours as a group of FBS ADs, 135 of us, and in an executive session. So it was just us. And I won't get into a ton of detail, but, you know, I think we're all concerned about the young person that goes to 4 institutions in 4 or 5 years. And that is, I mean, that's not what you or I or anybody in our generation or even those that came after us ever had by measure for what the academic or athletic experience should be in college sports, right? It's not what you would think a non-athlete would want themselves to go to 3, 4, 5 institutions. But yet here we are. And you know, when you watch the college football playoff or the NCAA tournament this year, how many times did you hear broadcasters say, "Well, Rich was at 2 years ago, Rich was at this school, and then last year he went to this school, and then now he's playing for this school," and you can see the growth and evolution of his career. That's not good. It's not good for that young person. Maybe if they were able to monetize some of that, okay, but not they're making decisions that are maybe more short term, right, than they are long term in the benefits that they may have. And I worry about that for what the long term health of what that might mean for where does a young person put their root system. I have so many great alums of the University of Massachusetts that were here for 4 or 5 years, had a tremendous experience, and now want to give back. What does it look like with the young person that was here for 1 year or 2 years, 20 years from now? Do they have a root system at UMass when they decided to leave to go somewhere else? Or maybe they ended their career here, but they have an affinity for another experience that they had. We're not talking enough about that too, and what the long-term concerns and issues that we're going to have with some of those things in terms of engagement, in terms of bringing those people back into the fold and being part of what we do at UMass and other institutions. It's going to be really hard, Rich, to get this all, continue to keep it tethered to academics, because we're headed towards an employment model. And that's a really dangerous thing to consider unless we get congressional intervention here from an antitrust perspective and from an employment perspective. You can see where this is going, and that's going to make it even harder for us to really tether what is the academic experience that I'm giving to that young person when they arrive on campus in Amherst. Or, because at the end of the day, I want them to get a meaningful degree, because sport ends. And when sport ends, I want them to settle into the community they want to be in, and I want them to have every fighting chance to develop themselves and have a life for them and their families that's going to be enriching. And that they're going to have that relationship with us, or with their teammates and things. Again, getting back to those personal relationships, that's going to enrich their lives forever. And I worry about where we are now and how we're going to be able to manufacture that in the future.
If we could get specific, they've almost diminished the reputation of Eisenberg.
Well,
if you would take a great program that's at UMass, a state education, my daughter is at Westfield with me now, but UMass was her other consideration, and we look very hard at UMass and extremely impressed as an educator myself at everything that UMass had to offer. Unbelievable. But I think it does, if you have somebody who's hopping in and out of school, you can't be a member of an Eisenberg program that when you graduate, now you've really got something special. Now you've got something that means something. And transferring students into such a school or bringing them in for only 1 year it's not feasible. Let me just throw it this way. You have Girl Scouts, right? They sit out and they sell Girl Scout cookies. They don't get any of the revenue from selling those Girl Scout cookies. A person who flips burgers at McDonald's gets to share in the revenue, but not at the level that these young men and young people are now sharing in the revenue. So there's very rarely you could point to an instance where an employee is claiming 50% of the revenue. It doesn't operate that way in the corporate world, And so when I see this, and especially it's only now going to be in several sports, where for myself I would prefer to see it broadened out to every single sport, and every person that's participating in the organization of college sports would also benefit from that as well, because not everybody is benefiting out of this, and that's a little problematic for me. I always wanted people to get paid, but the way they kicked this door open is just, it's crazy. Talk.
Well, we
Let's.
didn't manage it well over the last decade, and we had opportunities to get to a model that was more sustainable and I think took into consideration the benefits that we could provide, but also shared some of those revenues. But here's the reality of it, Rich, is we've gotten to for lack of a better description and market, we've gotten to a pro sports model, right? But at the same time, we haven't collectively bargained like pro sports leagues have collectively bargained to share that revenue. And
100%.
so the House settlement only addresses a piece of this. It doesn't protect us against certain things going forward that we ultimately, again, we need congressional assistance with, because the model, the collegiate athletics model is being threatened, and the long-term health is being threatened if we don't get our arms around all of this and make sure that we have protections in place and that we're being reasonable about what those opportunities are to share those things across a broader spectrum like you described of student athletes. Then we're gonna keep getting sued, and it's not going to be good for anyone in college athletics. I mean, University of Massachusetts is going to pay over the next 10 years part of the settlement for the House, to the tune of over $400,000 a year, because
Wow.
of what we didn't do over the last decade, right? And as an industry, and so that's a challenging environment. I don't want to pay damages anymore. I want to get it right. I want to get it right for the future, for not just for what we're doing in the next 10 to 20 years, but for the future of college athletics as a whole.
I agree. I thought that was a huge overstep when they made everybody go back and pay the old bills, because that was the rule at the time. Everybody existed under the rule at the time and operated. Let me ask you a quick question also. Do they offset the revenue numbers with the expense numbers, or are revenue numbers just counted in isolation?
No, in terms of how you're counting in the formula.
If you're coming up with a revenue number, like you
Yeah.
see that Rutgers loses $50 million, UConn lost $25 million as a program. Are they counting the offsets in that, for example, scholarships, cost
No.
of hotels, planes, all that other stuff, or is it
No,
just straight
and
revenue?
that's been the largest argument that we've made over time, is that the value of that, of what we give a young person, just say in a sport of football or men's basketball, the tuition, room, board, fees, cost of attendance, money, the academic support that we give them, the nutrition that we give them, the strength and conditioning, the sports medicine, the mentorship, the career development, all of those things. Some of them are tangible, some of them are not. And but if you were to put a value into all of those things, the cost per student athlete in those sports, men's, women's basketball, and football in particular, which are all what we call head count sports, so they're full scholarship sports, is well in excess of six figures per year, well in excess of $100,000. That doesn't get calculated anywhere here, right? And but we're still doing that, and then we're doing things on top of that. I'm
Sure.
not saying that's a bad thing, but trust me, when we're sitting with a young person at the University of Massachusetts, we're telling them about the total value proposition of what we're offering them. What tuition, room, board, and fees cost, what cost of attendance is, what we're doing from a strength conditioning, equipment, apparel, what are they getting from Adidas sideline apparel? All those things add up. And we say, not only do you get that, and you get these other buckets which are taxable, the NIL or revenue sharing, but you get all this stuff. What's the total value to you over the course of your career? It might be more than $500,000 total, maybe a million plus total. And
No,
when
I
you
agree.
show that to a young person and their family, and you say, hey, you've got we pay for your tutors to the tune of $35 an hour. We pay for your tutors. You can imagine it usually resonates really with the mom and the dad, and they say, holy cow, this is an unbelievable opportunity. Um, and that's what we try to encapsulate to show the value that you're getting by attending an institution like the University of Massachusetts.
There's postgraduate value there to UMass. It's what Woj is trying to sell at Bonner's right now, is that there's
No doubt.
postgraduate value to these degrees that we're having. I want to run you through just a quick couple of names here, and then I'm going to let you run, because we're going to start in UMass. And just give me a word or two or a sentence or two on these individuals that are UMass people that are absolutely knockout Hall of Famers. Rick Pitino.
Yeah, I mean, great. What arguably one of the best, college basketball coaches. Not a lot of people know that Rick went to the University of Massachusetts, played
Right.
with Dr. J under Jack Lehman. Yeah, he's had an unbelievable career, and I think the root again, the root system. He would tell you, emanated a lot of that came from his time here at the flagship campus.
Here's another divergent path. Julius Irving.
What a wonderful ambassador for us. And I would say arguably one of the top 15 or 20 basketball players of all time, right? I mean, when
No
you look at
question.
a lot of those lists, to think that he wasn't eligible his first year and that they used to get, or he wasn't eligible to play varsity, and they used to get for those freshman games a better attended crowd at those games than the varsity games at UMass. It like people now can't fathom that. They don't understand, and I hear that from so many people, and it's mind blowing. It's
So
unbelievable.
his freshman team came down and played Westfield State. And they played in our tiny little gym, which is about as big as this room right here. And the people, because it got so crowded to come and see him, they all started standing along the sidelines. So there's a picture of him in our gym with the entire sidelines. They're standing like an inch from him on the sidelines, but everybody knew about it back then and
Yeah.
went. How about Marcus Camby?
Marcus is another huge ambassador for us. Very visible, comes back, gives back. Very proud of his UMass heritage, and we're extremely proud of an 18-year NBA career, but also the things that Marcus has done. Came back and got his degree about 6 or 7 years ago, and that meant a lot to him, to his family. But what he's done, the business relationships he's built, all those different business lines that have enriched his family post playing career. That's what you want. That's what we sell. Sport is going to end. When it ends, did UMass set you up for success in life? And Marcus is a great example of that.
No doubt. Let's jump in. I'm going to take 2 minutes and we're just going to run through this. Is Cooper Flagg your number one?
Yeah, I think yes. And
Pretty-
I'm shocked Dallas got the pick.
It's that was a little bit surprising. I'm not of this mindset we talk about here all the time that wouldn't be on the move somewhere. Somebody might come up with a really great deal for them and swear
Yeah.
that. How about Rasheer Fleming, St. Joe's?
I don't know where. Yeah,
St.
I don't know
Joe's.
St. Joe's.
Yeah, he played. I saw him play in the A10 this year. They're talking about him being at the end of the lottery, and he's got a lot of talent. Got a lot of got unbelievable wingspan.
I know Rasheer. I just did. Yeah, I haven't followed the draft enough to know what his prospects are. But yeah, super talent. Look, athletic. You know, that's the thing about the A10, man. The athleticism.
There's a lot of guys in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, you know what? And I like guys that we followed and played against and watched going and having good NBA careers. And I think he's one that his game translates to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't mean to catch you with that one. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking your time. I really think our fans got a great insight into what's going on, and it was exciting to have you on today. I want to thank you and really show our appreciation from In the Zone for you taking your time to be with us today.
Coach, thanks for the opportunity, man. Happy to do it, and good luck to you, and have a great summer.
Hey, get that jumper back in line, man. I'll stop by one of these days.
Gotta ice my elbow.
Yep.
See you, Coach.
You take care. All right, Pete. Ryan Bamford.
Awesome interview.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
Great,
Thanks, Coach.
Great, really insight there. You know, it's what I love because athletic directors are in the middle of all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you could tell from a little bit of the tenor of his voice there that, you know, he's not 100% in favor of all this stuff. You know, I didn't want to hit him with the Pete line of "you killed amateurism." You know, we didn't. But he alluded to that.
He was dancing around it, though.
Yeah, he alluded to it. We didn't really need to go there because he did a great job of talking about it eloquently and really forcefully.
I was sitting back here cheering. I was like, these are the things that we're talking about, like valid questions that people are asking out there, and so now it's nice to know that at least some of the athletic directors are thinking along the same lines that we are. They're not in a vacuum.
He's done an amazing job there. Some of the things that I wasn't able to get into because that interview just went by like mercury. But Ryan Bamford's done an amazing job in helping fundraise for UMass. They have the new Kennedy Center built there for the basketball practice facility, which is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. But also, he's done a great job of increasing their revenue numbers. And those are the things. And I wanted to give him a chance because I know a lot of people have been critical about the move to MAC, but he really spoke to it and really gave a great explanation of what's going on there. And as you and I talk about football's got it going on.
And that's what he said. It's the logical process is, they got the football is going to be the biggest program in any school, and they got to get theirs going.
No doubt.
And that's the logic behind it. And you can't fault that logical process to bring them where they're at.
I thought he made a great
he did
kind
give props
of a
to
segue. I thought he made a great segue to our institution being in a conference with similar institutions of our ilk. St. Bonaventure, LaSalle, St. Joseph's, those schools are struggling immensely to try and get into this whole thing right now. I can tell you point blank that a lot of those schools are considering whether it's sustainable for them to stay into this right now. And so you might see some of that start shifting. But I think he gave a great explanation there. Pete, let's jump in to the basketball games that we still have here. We are in NBA final season, so we get to go to Ryan Bamford and boom, right into the NBA finals. I'll tell you right now, I'm surprised so far from what I've seen. In game one, the Pacers came way back from a deficit like they have been doing, and you got Holy Halliburton at the end of that game, really took game one from them. But then the Thunder came back in game two, and it was 123-107. They had control of the game the entire time. SGA was fabulous. Holmgren looked good. Jalen Williams is terrific. He's a really, really good, underrated player for the Thunder. I think he's going to have a very, very bright career. The series then tied 1-1, but Caruso, Alex Caruso, the guy that we were kind of hitting him about, giving a guy who comes off the bench all that money that they did. Well, now you see why they did it. He had 20 points off the bench, and he was 4 for 8 from three-point range. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went for 34, 5, and 8, plus 4 steals. You also had Aaron Wiggins come off the bench for the Thunder, 18 points on 5 of 8 shooting from three-point range. Between Caruso and Wiggins in that game, they were 9 for 16. Really, really came out good. So now I'm sitting there going, all right, it's 1-1. The Thunder got their level back here. And last night going into game 3, I really thought you'd see the Thunder come out and really take control of the game because I have a feeling that they might be the more talented and better team. But I'm looking at some of the coaching decisions that Carlisle's making, and Dagnall's doing a great job, but Carlisle's on top of his game, unbelievable. The first half of that game in game 3 last night might have been the best half of basketball played in the entire playoffs thus far. Really, really, really good basketball. I go back to the Pacers series. I think this hardened them up a little bit because the Knicks series, as one of my assistant coaches alluded to, they lost control of that series. That was like a football match. The referees completely lost control of that series where it was so physical, so dirty even, that guys were just getting pulled out of the air. More guys were getting knocked to the ground than you'd ever seen before. Last night, the Pacers and the Thunder, it was very physical and going at it, and the refs kind of let them go, but, they got to stop. And I can see the Pacers' frustration. They're giving Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a lot of calls. He falls down a lot. He goes into these situations where he's forcing contact, and the refs are biting on it, and they got to stop doing that if they want to have a fair assessment of what's going on out there right now. But the Pacers are on serious pace in this game, but the Thunder just kept responding. I thought that maybe the Pacers bench, their coaches, looking down at the Thunder like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid when they were getting chased by that posse of sheriffs behind them, and every once in a while they turn around and go, who are these guys? Who are these guys? I think they were talking about that, at the Thunder where they first 3 quarters, the Pacers played great. But the Thunder was right there answering the bell every single time. This game was not decided until the very, very end moments when Halliburton banged some threes and they got loose a little bit. But that game was nip and tuck all the way down. It looked like the Thunder was going to pull away. But then all of a sudden, the Pacers caught great great production from Benedict Mathurin last night. Off the bench, 27 points. It was just a late explosion where that game was quick, and then all of a sudden you looked up and it was 110 to 102. At that moment, Halliburton's up at half court, and Caruso strips him. 110-102 with about 2 minutes to go. He winds up getting fouled going to the basket, makes both. It brings it back to 6. Almost got a chance to creep back in there, but then the Pacers answered the bell. And their defense, because the Pacers' turnover rate last night at the end of that game was terrible. For a team that wants to win an NBA title right now, the way that their play calling went, the way they handled that basketball, and the way they executed at the end of the game was not NBA championship caliber basketball. The reason they were victorious is because the Oklahoma City Thunder shot so poorly from the free throw line. Free throws and layups decide the game every single time. Layups certainly going to decide it, but the free throws last night, the Thunder went cold at a time where they really needed those free throws to not let the Pacers get away from them. But the Pacers defense held. Big block by Pascal Siakam on Holmgren at the end of the shot clock. Really, really did a good job. I think Jalen Williams really separating himself here as a player as well. He's going to be a really, really good pro moving forward. I think the free throws again, and Mercurial Mathurin. Right now, you've got the Pacers with a 2-1 lead, and they got another home game coming up right behind it. They can really establish themselves here. OKC finds themselves right now very quickly on the precipice of being in bad shape. If you go down 3-1 in an NBA Finals series, you're in bad shape. You're in bad shape. All right, we got some other NBA stuff for you. Want to say rest in peace to David Greenwood. I want to give a shout out to one of my good buddies, Joe Collins, one of the great UCLA fans way back. David Greenwood was an absolute star when I grew up playing for UCLA. One of the greatest college basketball players that I've ever seen, and he was an absolute great ambassador for UCLA, just passed away recently. We'll give you a little bit of his stats. At UCLA, he averaged 14 points and almost 9 rebounds. UCLA, Pete, grabbed this one, 102 and 17 during his stretch there. Wow. 4-time Pac-10 Player of the Year, 4-time Player of the Year in the Pac-10. And 1976 went to the Final Four with UCLA. He was the second pick in the NBA draft, and he was a first-team All-American. Unbelievable. From In the Zone, David Greenwood, rest in peace. The Suns hired Jordan Ott, and around the NBA, everybody said, nobody knows who Jordan Ott is. Longtime assistant. His first comment was, "I've earned the right to be here," which tells me maybe you didn't. But Johnny Bryant and Ott are two of the assistant coaches' names, both working for the Cavaliers. Everybody excited about what the Cavaliers did, but, I got to be honest with you. I don't get this. And I'm not in for the, we got to retrench this guy and we got to go back and hire this guy again. I'm not for all that, but, there's got to be other opportunities here where other guys who've coached, been head coaches before, never ever coached a day in their life, are now walking into an NBA franchise and leading an NBA franchise. I think it was unhealthy when you got J.J. Redick to get that job. I think some of the other jobs that have been handed out in the NBA are bad for business. Okay, Pete, let's slip into our draft a little bit. We're approaching it, and Juneteenth is the 19th. Pete will not be around. I will not be around. So we are promising you lock, stock, and barrel on the 18th, Wednesday, the 18th, In the Zone. We'll have both rounds. We're better than the NBA. NBA needs 2 nights to do it. We're going to do it for you in 1 hour. And we're going to get you, man, I did it last night for the first time. So what I've done is I go through all my research. I do all my stuff. I've been listening to mock drafts like crazy on the television, what other people are thinking, what's their rationale, why do they think that. I also went through and I took about maybe the top 40 players that are going to be considered, and I laid out their stat lines. I also took their anthropometric measurements, meaning exactly how tall are they. We all thought Ace Bailey was 6'10". Well, he's actually 6'7.5". There was a lot of that at the combine because these colleges, we call it +2 rule, where you're adding 2 inches at least to it. But here's a couple of things that have struck me thus far, Pete, and I want to throw them out there because when I did my draft last night for the first time, I did a mock 1 through 59. There's only 59 picks this year, and it was the first time I did it. And so I'm going to do one every single night until we get to Wednesday. You know, in the Tuesday range, I'm going to try and get everything to Pete, but I'm going to keep doing them as we go, especially over the weekend. I might do 2 a day. But what I've done is I format out who has the pick. Then I form out the player, the school they went to, and all the other stuff, and the pick that it might be in the draft. And I go and I fill it in. All right, I have Cooper Flagg because there's really nobody else there that's taken it from him. I have him as our number 1. But what I was shocked at as I went through it, and then I held it up in comparison to a lot of the mock drafts that are out there. Now, there's a caveat to mine, folks, because I have not included in my draft, and I don't think I'm going to. I might, I'm not sure. But are we going to include the European players that are out there? Very hard to get a look at them, very hard to evaluate them. I watch a lot of these guys all year long. So what we might do is quarantine it to only the American players, but right now, most mock drafts, which is very, very surprising, do not have an international player being drafted until 14 or 15. Now, I think that might be a mistake because I've looked at a little bit of some of these international players. Some of them are not bad for sure, but for us, we really concentrate on the actual players. So here's a couple of things that stuck out to me, Pete. If you went to one of the best schools in the country, were considered for a Wooden Award winner, and were given in excess of $1.5 million as an NIL player, Hunter Dickinson is the guy we're shrouding and talking about here. He's not mentioned on anybody's draft board. Nowhere. From 1 to 59, can you find Hunter Dickinson?
So nobody
Now,
sees him as transitioning to an NBA player?
You know, that's exactly what I'm thinking too. But then I looked at some of these players and I'm saying, would you really draft him over Hunter Dickinson? I mean, I think there's something's out with this guy. There's a bad mouth on him.
Did the private investigators find something?
He's not going to win any bar fights, Pete.
Okay.
You know, he's not the toughest guy in the world, but we're talking about a bunch of guys on here who aren't going to win any bar fights that could be very, very good NBA players. So I think there's something out about this kid. I'm just saying right now, he'll be on our draft board for sure. With credentials like that, he's an All-American, folks. Average a double-double. I get it. He ain't the toughest guy in the world. He's not going to win any MMA fights. We get it. He's not going into the WWE anytime soon at 7'2", 126 pounds. We get it. But he is 7 foot, and he has got some very good skill around the basket and can shoot the ball away from the basket as well, too, which a lot of NBA people like. So I don't know if there's a bad mouth out on him, but he plays for Kansas.
Sounds like they're going to snap him like a twig.
But they said the same thing about Chet Holmgren and some of these other guys.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this new ways to get these guys a little stronger. I don't know. I just thought with him, it's been surprising to me. There's some other guys on here that I'll talk about that we're going to draft that nobody has on their draft board. I'm really surprised at it. You look at a guy like Tyson Degenhart from Boise State. We're going to draft him most likely. You look at the guy Poulakaitis from Yale. Nobody wants to really draft him. We're going to draft him because we think he's got value in a second-round pick for sure. But then I've got a whole bunch of other big guys that I don't think are being considered. I'll give a couple of them to you. Now, Danny Wolf, everybody's kind of high on, but I think Grant Nelson from Michigan is going to be a very good pro. I think you're going to get Kaman Malak from Duke is going to be solid. I think Samson Johnson from UConn is going to be a solid pick. Vlad Golden from Michigan, I love him in a solid pick there. So there's some guys there that I think aren't really getting the due that they're worth. I think that people, the way this thing is constructed, people are looking at it, people are looking at all the prognosticators, and they're going, it's not a great draft. And I'll agree with that. It's not. It's not like Wembanyama's draft. You know, and if you go back to 2016 when we talked about Marcus Camby, I mean, that was a draft that was unbelievable. I could find you. I wrote down some of the people that were in that draft that were absolutely unbelievable. And right there with Camby, you know, just great. I don't know that this is it. Let me give it to you. I found it, Pete. Marcus Camby was taken number 2 in 1996. Okay, number 1 pick that year, Allen Iverson. Number 4 pick that year, Stephon Marbury. Number 5, Ray Allen, UConn Huskies. Number 6, Antoine Walker, played for the Celtics for years. Yeah. Number 8, Kerry Kittles, played for the Nets out of Villanova for years. Heavy Big East frame here. Kobe Bryant taken at number 13. And Steve Nash taken at 15. That was a heck of a draft. This isn't that. You know, but where you're going to find your value, and what I'm saying to some of these other people, like if you're the Spurs at number 2, I'd dump that pick if I was the Spurs at number 2. If I'm the 76ers at number 3, I'm dumping it. I'm going to try and get some value, some veteran leadership to bolster my roster right now. I'm not going to count on one of these young guys to lead us out of nowhere land, and not one of these young players. Because if you look at Dallas's setup, this was a lot of reason why even Ryan said they were shocked to see Dallas get the pick. We all were. But if you look at their setup right now, you say this is what they're thinking, I would imagine. You have Kyrie, who will come back, hopefully, the unrestricted free agent, but he could come back. You got Anthony Davis, who when he's healthy is a great player in the NBA. When he's healthy is the caveat. But you also have Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. That roster is not terrible. They also have Klay Thompson on that roster. So it's not terrible that if you add Cooper Flagg there, that it really can have some value for their roster and be good. I would also see the Celtics possibly trying to get – what's going to happen with the Celtics is, my opinion, is they're going to have to dump Jaylen Brown.
Well,
you're going to have to say
that salary is going to have to walk out the door.
It's $50 million.
Yeah.
Right. It's $50 million. They're going to wind up eating some of that $50 million no matter where he goes. Their cap will have to some of that will have to remain in that $50 million. But right now, you could say to somebody, okay, we'll give you Jaylen Brown and one other player for the number 1 pick. And the Mavericks, where they are right now, they might bite.
Well, yeah, because they need the established player. They can't afford to take a gamble.
And you got to ask yourself, Cooper Flagg's an unknown. You know what Jaylen Brown is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a good player.
Yep.
You know, I'm not in love with him being a $50 million man by any stretch of the imagination, but that seems where the nickels and dimes are going these days. So
at 3/5 of that, he's not a bad player.
That's what it is, yeah. Here's a couple of guys that I think a lot of times we get no respect for our seniors who've played in the NCAA, done a great job. I'm going to give you 2 names of guys that are going to be in our first-round picks, and nobody has these guys up there where they should be. Eric Dixon from Villanova. He's almost 6'8". He's one of the leading scorers in the nation this year. Played on a team that didn't have a whole lot of talent to support him. I don't think their coaching staff did a whole lot to help him either. But Eric Dixon, I think, is going to be a really, really good pick for somebody right in that middle round. That's what they don't have, is some of these seniors in there that are going to be okay for you. You got some of these other guys. They're talking about this guy, Thomas Bryant or Carter Bryant from Arizona. He didn't even start half of his games. He averaged like 8 points and 6 rebounds. He played in Arizona, I get it, but if they didn't think he was one of their top guys, why would an NBA team try and draft him in the 10 spot? I've got him way down in the second round if we draft him at all. But I'm talking about Vlad Golden. I'm talking about Kalkbrenner. I'm talking about some of these 7-footers that can come in and help you at the center position, which is really, really hard to get. You can get a guy like some of these other guys anytime you want. There's not a lot of difference between Walter Clayton Jr., Caleb Love, Mark Sears, or Tyrese Proctor. And if you take all 4 of those guys, and nobody thinks this way, I take Tyrese Proctor before I take any of those guys. I don't know why people aren't looking at it like that. Expect, Pete, and this is where it'll make you a little dizzy, I would expect some trade activity always right around that day, but I would expect some trade activity. Again, I'm going to go through it. If you're in 2, 3, 4, 5, dump the pick, get some value, maybe get some picks down the road for a better draft. Everybody says they're like a bunch of NBA Annies, you know, who are going tomorrow, there'll be a better draft tomorrow. And so that's what everybody's hoping for. You got some teams in this thing. You have 4 teams that have 10% of the draft. That have almost, you have 4 teams that have 10 picks in the first round. So they make up almost 33% of the first round in only 4 teams. The New Jersey Nets have 4 first-round picks. They're at 8, they're at 19, 26, and 27. Wow. You got some other teams in there, and this ought to scare the pants off everybody in the NBA. OKC's got 2. They got an unbelievable roster. They got 2 picks. All right, I don't know if Jaylen Brown's tradable, though, Pete. We're going to have to see. Durant and his agent floating the possibility that he wants to get out. So right now, you got some NBA guys out there right now that are absolute impact guys. If you're in a win-now situation, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, win now. Durant wants out of Phoenix. He don't think they can win now. Who's he going to go to? The Knicks? To the Celtics, to a team that has a chance to win right now, and he can help them do that. Giannis Antetokounmpo, out of the Bucks organization, out of Milwaukee. Where's he going to land? Don't be surprised if he lines up in Chicago, winds up in one of those major areas. They did say that he was interested in New York, but I don't know if that had anything to do with the Thibodeau situation as well. But let's jump into that for a quick question. The Knicks, after firing Coach Thibodeau, and I wanted just to stop 1 second there because Coach Thibodeau in the New York Times took out a full-page ad in the New York Times to thank the New York people, to thank the Knicks fans, to thank everybody in New York for being the #1 class organization in the world, as he called it. And a great, great move by Tibbs. I love the guy. I really think he caught a bad deal here. I thought he might have got stabbed in the back a little bit too. But here's some of the people right now that the Knicks are getting turned down like they're trying to get a prom date in July. Okay? It's late. It's too long. Everybody already went to the prom, fellas. So you got a bunch of people saying, I'm not interested. Thanks for the offer, but I'm not interested. Ime Udoka from the Houston Rockets. Nope. They wouldn't let him talk to him. Chris Finch, they asked for permission to speak to Chris Finch from the Timberwolves. Permission denied. They wanted to talk to Quinn Snyder. I have no idea why, but they did, and their permission was denied. Jay Wright and Danny Hurley, 2 college coaches, came out, said, no bueno, no bueno. Neither one of them interested. I still would keep an eye on Todd Golden here from the University of Florida, although I just think they redid his contract. There was a whole lot of smoke about Jason Kidd going on, and Jason Kidd also said, no bueno.
That just shows you that there's not a lot of respect for that franchise.
No, there's just, I don't know how they wound up in this spot. Like, you're not supposed to do it, but you also have to have some conversation with people to say, hey, would you take this? If we do this, will you do that? That gotta, they're caught footless here. They really, really look like they're caught footless here. The Mavericks and the #1. Are the Mavericks going to Vegas? And if they don't, that's not a bad team to build around with Cooper Flagg. Do they trade Kyrie as an unrestricted free agent, or do they try and re-sign him? I think they'll wind up re-signing him. But he is extremely, extremely expensive. Very, very expensive. Pete, I got about a minute, maybe 2. All right. We talked about the NIL with Ryan Bamford. Great, great interview with him today. Great, great information that he espoused for our crowd. But here is what the NIL is doing. It's allowing college guys to go home. We talked about R.J. Luis. I'm much higher on him than just about everybody else is. Everybody seems to be stuck in that one moment where Rick Pitino benched him at the end of their last game of the year. Yeah. That stuff happens, folks. It doesn't take away from everything that this young man did. I have him in the first round. But if he goes back, what they're saying is, if he gets all the way pushed back to the second round, which could happen, he's going to draw about $600,000 from the NBA. If he goes back to college, he's looking at $2 to $3 million. And so these are the decisions that have to be made. And we are right up on it. June 15th is the date, the withdrawal date, the deadline that they have to get out by. All right, here's the guys that are out already. Yaxel Lendenberg is out. He was at UA UAB. He's going to end up at Michigan. Alex Condon from the Florida Gators World Championship. He was at Florida. He will return to Florida. They got the Gators chopping down there. Tahad Pettiford came in. They said second round. I thought he might have stuck around. He might have got himself into the first round because he had a good combine. He's decided to go back to Auburn. Milos Uzan was at Houston, took a little dip in the water for the NBA combine. He's going back to Houston. Boogie Fland is going to, so they got Condon back, Boogie Fland and Xavion Lee coming in. Florida's going to reload. He was at Arkansas, and then he's going to transfer. LeBaron Phelan was at Alabama, and he will return. Isaiah Evans is going to Duke. Darian Williams is taking his name out, NC State. Miles Byrd, San Diego State. Carter Knox, Arkansas, going back. Mackenzie Mabako was at Indiana, and he's going to Texas A&M. Pete, that's all we got for you. We'll see you next week in the zone with the draft on Wednesday. Take care, folks.